The UN says it is struggling to deliver aid to hundreds of thousands of Sudanese refugees who've crossed from Darfur into Chad. It says the rainy season is making the difficult journey more challenging because roads are flooded. More than 1 million Sudanese have fled since the fighting began in mid-April, and about 418,000 of them have sought refuge in Chad. Let's speak now to Ahmed Idris, who's in Adré on Chad's border with Sudan. You're with the head of the UN mission on the ground, Ahmed. We're keen to hear what he has to say.
Well, Cyril, the situation is desperate. Right now, on this particular field, just a few months ago, it was an empty plot of land. Now, what we have here, thousands, if not tens of thousands of refugees that crossed the border into eastern Chad are being here, are setting up camp here. And the United Nations High Commission of Refugees was able to evacuate 170-something thousand from Adré to a permanent camp. But again, this is a government or a United Nations agency that is struggling to keep pace with events that is unfolding here in Chad. Now, to talk more about this is the head of operations of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees here in Adré, Petros Mastakas. Talk to us about the situation right now in terms of the number of refugees we're seeing. Are we seeing more crossing into the border? Are we seeing more in the camps here, for example?
There are more than 400,000 Sudanese refugees that have crossed the border to Chad after the events of April in Sudan. Half of them, a bit less than half of them, are already moved to camps, old existing camps from the first crisis in Darfur, and new camps we have built. We have done 4 so far. Yet, the other half of refugees that cross the border are waiting to be relocated to new camps that we will create depending on the financial assistance.
Now, the obvious question is, do you have the resources to deal with the other half, like more than 200,000 refugees?
Our programs are funded only up to 27%. So we are having difficulties to provide the minimum required. Thankfully, the number of new arrivals has dropped. We're trying to understand if this is because of the rain season that makes movement of people more difficult, or because actually the conflict has stopped. While we're trying to understand the situation, we still need to respond to the basic needs: water, shelter, food, sanitation. We are lagging behind. We are trying to mobilize the resources that are currently available. They are not enough. We are here at a transit center. This is where people are waiting.
All right, it looks like let's see if we can get the audio back up and running for Ahmed and his guest, who is the head of the UN mission on the ground, who was just saying something really interesting. There are fewer people coming in to Chad, and they're not sure whether that's due to the rainy season that's blocking roads, making it difficult for them to get there, or because the conflict is not as intense as it once was. Ahmed, if you can hear me, you may not be aware of this, but we lost your audio there for a moment.
Of Chad, we are looking forward to the international community mobilizing and making available more means and more support to serve refugees.
Now, that's the situation right now at the camps. Basically, the Chadian authorities are saying that before the end of 2023, by December 31st, they expect the numbers to continue to rise up to probably more than 600,000. And that will add to the number of refugees earlier displaced by the conflict in Sudan, in Darfur. Past 20 years, like places like Darfur, we already have more than 600,000 being catered for by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees here in Chad alone. And he, the field operations officer, the head of the operations officer in Adré, is telling us that right now they have only 27% of what they need to serve these more than 1 million people in this what do you call it, in these camps. Now, what we are hearing from the World Food Programme as well is that they don't have enough to cater for these families, at least to give them a meal a day when we see the end of October 31st. That day, if help doesn't arrive, it will get more and more desperate. That means that people will starve, and then they will be left to the elements.
Ahmed, can you and your guest bear with us for a second? Because we lost your audio in your last question. We'd really like to hear what he has to say. We lost you shortly after your guest was saying that there are fewer people coming in and they don't know if it's because of the rainy season or if it's because of perhaps a decrease in violence on the other side of the border. We'd love to hear what he was saying just now, and we just couldn't catch it.